Civ 7, Civ 7, Civ 7. Waited like a decade for this, and it's just depressing how much of a fumble it is. I was really looking forward to this entry, mainly because I never really liked the formula in Civ 6. To be honest, that fact probably makes it feel like I've been waiting even longer for a Civ game that I can say I enjoyed. There's so many things that can be talked about for this Civ, and I don't even know where to start, so I suppose just the main menu makes it easier. There's no grand picture for the main menu like in the older entries. Instead, it opts for a dark background and one of the leaders chosen at random. There's no Civipedia on the main menu. It's only accessible in the game. I can't remember if that was the case in Civ 6, but it becomes a bit annoying in a little bit, as you'll see. There are a lot of things that have changed from Civ 6, in my opinion, significantly for the better. I personally really did not enjoy the governor system or the government card system. Although those policies do exist in Civ 7, it's far less bloated and juggly than the older entries. One of the first major changes that you'll see in the main menu, or predominantly when you start your first game, is the separation of leaders from nations. As funny as it sounds to me, Civ actually bit off humankind, taking what it believed were the best elements and integrating it into the mainline Civ, adopting the new age and dynamic nation-changing systems. But I will elaborate more on that on a bit. So, leaders. Leaders have always been a staple standout of Civ, taking a notable leader from that nation's history and bringing them to life, giving them various bonuses and unique flavor befitting of them, sorry. This part still remains, with each leader having unique ways to play. Some significantly powerful, for example, and some that I would say are not really so powerful. With the separation of leaders from nations, there are now more avenues to diversify this pool of leaders, allowing for more representation of unique and interesting people from all points of history. This includes people such as Machiavelli, there he is. Where's Ibn Battuta? Ibn Battuta is in there, and there's or Confucius. And in a normal Civ game, he'd be nothing more than just a great person. I'm looking to see what other unique non-nation leading people that they choose to add into the game going forwards, because there's definitely plenty of them to pick from. Since I'm writing this and recording this as of the first part of the Crossroads of the New Worlds patch, I've already got the first new one being Ada Lovelace. So you might have noticed that there are numbers under the Civ leaders' faces, as well as selectable boxes for these things called mementos. It feels kinda weird saying it, but Civ has a level system and a progression system now. I don't really understand why they did it, but yeah, you can level up in Civ by completing missions and challenges. As a completionist, I'm rather happy that we have something, but I feel like it's a bit weird in this entry. In the past, there's been a Civ which I really enjoyed for its progression. I don't know how many of you have played Civilization Revolution, but that one had a gallery based on the great people you acquired, wonders you built, and the busts for the various nations you've won games on. These busts also changed in quality the higher difficulty you completed the game on. In my opinion, this is like the best way they could have done a challenge and progression system, something visual rather than just a ever increasing list of ticking boxes. Regardless, by doing these you get XP. Some will go to your overall account level, which is this one here, which can go up to a maximum of 50. There's other rewards. However, some will also go to your chosen leader's XP pool, which can go up to a maximum of level 10. Since, there's no point in having a level system if it doesn't unlock anything. So, in Civ 7, these levels contribute to various decorative flair for your little banner thing up here. I think banner is probably the best word to describe it. Think of it like your Modern Warfare 2 plate. You get a fancy badge, you can choose your banner, your title, border, color. It's just basically flair. But alongside those, you will also unlock mementos and in-game influencing buffs. As much as I like the premise, I hate that they exist. I know it sounds contradictory, but hear me out. But by playing the character you enjoy and leveling them up, you gain specific attribute nodes and specific legacy cards for that leader. And to my knowledge, these can't really be disabled. A lot of these buffs are copy pasted to other leaders based on their leader type, but if I was to play multiplayer with someone new who doesn't have those levels, they cannot benefit from having access to those nodes or buffs. When it comes to the single player, these things don't matter. But for playing with friends, I think anything outside of the game that impacts what happens inside of it is just quite bad for strategy. This further gets exaggerated with the new memento system. These are tied to leveling of both your account and leveling of your character. These, however, are unique to the leader. You can unlock them. These are unique to the leader you unlock them with and drastically change what someone can do in game. You can have two of these active whenever you play a game, and they are active for the entire campaign. Some of them can be used in near enough ways to just cheat. So if I was to go to Napoleon, is it this Napoleon? It's this Napoleon, bicorn hat. One of Napoleon's, for example, can give all of your infantry +1 movement. And once you unlock these, you don't have to play the leader in order to use them. You can just slot them into any leader with any nation. There's lots of combinations here that can be played with, giving an extreme amount of replayability value. But again, this is nice for single player, but I don't really think it's good for multiplayer. And the best way I can word how I feel about this is, would it feel good or bad for losing against someone purely because they have a memento that gave them the upper hand? Something they have because they have more time to play and unlock them than you do? To me, it's like playing chess but starting with an extra pawn, or that my rook can also move diagonally. I don't know if the AI uses mementos, but thankfully in multiplayer you can disable these ones. My thoughts on mementos might change in the future, say the moment when everyone has all of them unlocked, and it begins technically as an equal playing field with everybody being able to just pick them at will. But at current, I mainly dislike the idea of them. They just remind me of those old PS2 or early Xbox games that when you complete them, they gave you like those modifiers or cheat codes to change the game, like making enemies' heads bigger and whatnot. Alongside your leaders, though, is the next part of the separation, is nations. You can take any leader and any mementos, and now you can pair them with any nation you like. These nations also change per age, like in humankind, but in Civ case it's more scripted based on what your prior nation was and who your leader is. There are also some unlock conditions that can be met to unlock nations outside your traditional pathing. There's probably lots of reasons why they adopted this system. You could argue it means that they only need to balance nations from each age against each other, rather than against every nation. That also removes those dry periods in other Civ games where you wait until you hit your tech specific power spike, or alleviate the dryness of having already hit your power spike and now you're just on the burner for the rest of the game. Or maybe simply from a historic standpoint to allow more representation of nations and cultures that would otherwise be more or less overwritten by a more prominent version of what is the same culture. For example, we have where are they? We have the Han culture, or the Han dynasty, for the Antiquity Age, which leads into Ming. There they are. Ming in the Exploration Age, lastly ending up on Qing in the Modern Age. So, of course, all of these would have just been compiled into China. in any other Civ entry. There's also the Normans, who were never really a true independent nation, but were a prominent subculture which would eventually become English. There's one other reason that jumps into my mind, and it's kind of a more negative one, kinda. It sounds weird, but replayability. I'm pretty sure they talked about it in one of the announcement videos or streams, but to have this mix and match system is like a way that they could push a selling point that no run is ever the same to the consumer. Instead of having, say, 16 civs at launch, we now have 10 to 11 nations per era and 21 leaders, and the memento system. So instead of it being 16 playthroughs like before, now you have 21 times 10 by 3, and then by 2 again if you use the memento slots for your total unique number of playable campaigns. Now, before I sound like completely deranged, the point I want to make is that it's shallow replayability to me. It's like making yourself a meal and saying it's different because you used a different color of plate and a different drink to go with it. But don't let my doomy, gloomy rant make it seem like the nations are bland. They do actually have a lot of flavor to them. They have their own unique modifiers, changing how the nations impact the ages versus the other nations of the era. For example, where are you, Persia? Did I go past you? I did. So yeah, Persian units gain +3 combat strength when attacking, whereas Greece will get +3 influence generation. Each nation also on average gets 2 unique units. Typically it's 1 military unit and then another form of other unit. Typically it's a civilian unit or a commander. These units and extra units also have their own modifiers impacting how they interact with the era and other nations. So again, sticking with Greece, the Greek hoplite is stronger when it's together with other hoplites. So alongside these units, you also get ageless buildings and districts. So this is no different from Civ 6's essentially. The concept is that an ageless building will continue to remain active in the ages to come. So things that you build normally, when you era swap, will become worthless. They'll get their modern ages equivalents, but these ones will stay no matter what. In some cases, some of the nations have access to unique quarters, and that's if you double stack both buildings on top of each other, which is a new thing for the game. Again, though, like I said, some of these can be general civilian units as well. So Persia, for example, will get a unique commander, which starts with the initiative promotion, which I think is really, really good. But there's a lot of things that the game doesn't tell you at face value when it comes to the nations. And this is by far one of the most frustrating complaints that I have with the game. The UI is just a mess. Firstly, some nations have unique civilian units that act as miniature versions of the old Civ game's great people. You unlock them, you build them, then fulfill their activation criteria to receive a bonus. This game doesn't tell you absolutely anywhere what that unit even does, unless you build them yourself. Even the Civipedia doesn't tell you what they do. It just has the same copy-pasted placeholder text. If you actually want to know what they do, you have to look up the nation on their website. Like, come on, really? You've got to haul your ass over to civilization.2k.com into their game guides, into civilizations, find the nation, scroll down just to find the 10 lines of text telling you what the list of the great people do. Like, this is literally what the Civipedia is for. You get these guys as random, by the way. You don't pick which one you want. They give you a random one out of the list, and they get more expensive the more you make. So you're just buying a production lottery ticket, and like not even knowing what you're getting each time you do it. I like that they've retained Great People as a concept, but this way of integrating it and explaining it is actually fucking terrible. Next up is traditions. Each nation has their own unique civics to research that give them some age-specific flavor based on the nation, what the nation was famous for. Finishing these civics also give you traditions to put into your government. These act the same way as policies, but traditions are ageless, meaning you can put these nation traditions into government in the next stage as well. For example, if I was going a military game, playing Persia in the first stage would allow me to take the tradition to give me plus 3 combat strength on all of my units in enemy territory. These traditions are not listed by the Civs, not listed in the Civipedia, but again, having to go to their website just to find out what they are. And in some cases, you might want to know what they do, or in regards to some strats like Lafayette, you might want to know how many traditions the nation has. Regardless, it's just a bit bad. If any game makes you go to like a third party space just to find info about a core element, it's just been badly designed. Lastly, each nation that I've played so far has at some point been given a quest system. Now, I think this is a really cool idea, as it makes you try to play to the strengths of your nation. It gives you rewards for completing these objectives as well as some additional random events tailored to the nation. As Persia, these random events often give you free immortals, and their quest line has you use immortals to kill one of each unit type: infantry, ranged, cavalry. Doing so will let you get a commander unit for free, which is absolutely huge. I'll explain that when I get to armies later on, but I can tell you this information for Persia simply because I've played them. Want to take a guess if I know what the other nations get? Yeah, not a clue, because these are not explained anywhere. Their website doesn't even elaborate more on this, or any of the official channel has nothing listed as to what the quests are, the objectives of them, or even what the rewards are for doing them. So once again, it's like a lottery of, is it a wasted effort to try and achieve this goal? Like I can forgive them for one instance of UI mess, but this is three separate instances of like hidden information just for one topic alone. It is really disappointing. Lastly, about the nations, if you choose to start in one of the later ages, as far as I'm aware, you don't get to choose the nations you've played, I say that in quotations, played prior. I'm only making this point again for the sake of traditions for your government, as these do make a difference. Again, like I said, if you want to be military in the final age, having that Persian tradition for plus 3 attack in hostile territory, that's a no-brainer. But again, once you've picked your leader in nation, next is onto the map stroke game specific rulings, and to be honest, these haven't changed at all from other civs. Harder AI, faster, slower game speed, but map size is iffy. I have a guess about this, which I'll elaborate once I hit the summary at the end of the video, but at current there are only 3 map sizes: tiny, small, and standard. We are missing both the large and huge map types, which is honestly like, it's actually really shocking for the launch version. But with all that out of the way, we can actually now start talking about the game. And it's already been like 3 pages and a half of script. This is gonna be a long one. Right, I'm gonna give myself a bit of an easy time with these parts, since I want to assume most people already know the basic concepts of Civ in general. You play cities, accumulate yields and grow, research, conquer, yada yada. So I'm mostly going to focus on the key changes that differentiate this Civ from the previous. This way I'm not explaining every core mechanic of the game. So where do I start? Quite a fair bit has changed in the loop of the game. Old features have come back and new changes are now in play, and one of them I need to mention before you even pop down your first city is that settlers have changed. And no, I'm not meaning the whole town city change, which we'll get to later. Settlers are now actual units. They can't be captured anymore. They now have HP, although not much, but they have no combat score, so they'll just soak up hits and die. This is the same for scouts too. Why do I feel the need to mention this first? Well, it's now more viable than ever to forward settle. Barbs can't just take it out of thin air, and another player attacking has to go through the new diplomacy system. Once your first city is down is when the real change begins. City growth has been completely overhauled. Population now sprawls out onto tiles, claiming the adjacent tiles for your city. This replaces the whole culture border growth system from before. It also replaces the builder unit system, as this population sprawl is now what works the tile, which makes improvements more natural rather than builder dependent, which is a change I really like. This new sprawl also applies to buildings. Again, also following the trend of humankind, buildings are now placed outside of the city centre and outside of specific districts, like in Civ 6. Instead, these buildings can now form their own districts, with the introduction of the new concept called overbuilding. Two buildings can now be built on top of each other, sharing the same tile space. For some nations, building both unique buildings together creates their unique quarter, this often providing a nice bonus and potential access to a unique unit. It's also neat and tidy, as nation-specific buildings are ageless and don't lose adjacency throughout the game. Having them on top of each other only means one tile is used as space for them. As the ages change and these non-ageless buildings lose relevance, you then build on top of them, replacing the old with the new. This is quite an authentic change since it's historic for cities to do that. Edinburgh being a prime example, as the city centre is for the most part built on top of the old town. Now, as your first city grows and expands, you'll see it create the yields that lets your empire develop. Science and culture remain staples with newly designed tech and civic trees. Unfortunately, these also suffer from the lax UI design. In my opinion, these trees are rather lackluster, with ages now being more formally divided based on the ages, so only the technology from said era is there. The trees themselves end up just looking much smaller in comparison. They are now multi-layered because Civ 7 has introduced a new mastery tech and civic system. Think of them like researching the same thing twice for additional benefits. Or you can think of them as padding. I wouldn't blame you for thinking that either. Alongside these, you've got gold generation as usual, and now you have some new returning yields. Happiness makes its return into Civ 7, operating completely differently than before. It's now both a local and global yield, as well as the city management resource. It remains the same that unhappy cities become unproductive, then potentially seek independence from your empire, but now happy cities contribute that net positive happiness to the now global yield. This yield is the driving force behind the updated government system. At the start of each age, you'll be prompted to pick which government you'd like to be. These grant bonuses to your empire whenever you're in a state of celebration. Happiness is what puts you in that state of celebration. The more happiness you accumulate, the more celebrations you have. However, that's not all it's for. Each celebration also allows you to enhance your government policies. This is more or less the same system as Civ 6, where you slot bonuses you earn via researching civics. In my opinion, this system has a massive improvement over Civ 6's, as it no longer suffers from the sheer bloat Civ 6 had. The age lock system acting as a good floodgate to prevent the player from being just sheerly overwhelmed by choices. They're also no longer type locked, so you can now freely insert whichever policy or tradition you want, and provided you have the space to accommodate it. Influence is the next shield. I mentioned it earlier when I talked about the Greek traditions. This is a diplomatic currency. Think of it as diplomatic favor from Civ 6, but better implemented and more universal. Whenever you meet a new nation, you can choose to spend this currency to go for a more beneficial meeting, and when negotiating with the nation, you can also spend this on the new collaborative pacts. These pacts are leader specific based on the type of leader you have. For example, a militaristic scientific leader will only be able to propose military aid collaborations or research agreement collaborations. These of course grant benefits only to their selected affinity. The AI can also propose these deals onto you. You can accept these deals for no cost and get just over half the benefits, or you can endorse them and gain the full benefit that the proposing party would receive. You can, however, also decline them, preventing them from getting any bonuses. It should be noted that declining also shares an influence cost. If by chance you're looking to declare war or have war declared upon you, influence also matters here too. Civ has, in my opinion, always struggled with ways to make the AI respond to aggression and how the AI handles being aggressive. They could be your ally one moment, then 3 turns later break all agreements for unknown reasons and declare war on you, all with little penalties other than the surprise war mechanics Civ 6 added. In Civ 7, if you want to declare war, you need to be in a state of bad relations, because if not, there's no penalties. Denouncing a nation is the way to do that, and if you're looking to war, you should do so before bringing out the swords. On the other hand, if you're concerned about the AI warring you, you can now block their denouncement with influence as well. This will prevent the opinion change, forcing them to take the consequences of warring under cordial terms. The way these consequences work now is in the form of war weariness. This is like a tug of war mechanic between the two nations. If one nation has more war enthusiasm than the other, they will receive bonus combat strength relative to the difference in enthusiasm. Declaring war on non-hostile terms will give you negative war enthusiasm at the start of the war, meaning your troops will perform statistically worse than your opponents. This is also another mechanic that can be solved with influence, allowing you to spend your influence to boost war support. The more support you have, the better your troops will perform. Its final use case is to influence the independent people. Barbarians have been removed from the game and replaced with this new independent people system. They start either friendly towards you or aggressive. I think it's related to your leader's primary focuses, so if you're militaristic scientific, the scientific independent people will have a friendly opening relation to you. And again, similar to the other 4X games, you can spend influence on befriending these peoples. You have the choice to either spend additional influence to speed up the process, but once you finish the process you become the undisputed suzerain of the city-state, effectively acting identical to the city-states in other Civ games, except now you get a powerful bonus upon making them your city-state. These change by era, but are still powerful no matter what. Just to list an example, you can get free technology and free civics from this, or increased infantry combat strength. Lastly, up in this area is the city cap tally. It's more flexible now than in prior games. In the older entries, settling more cities would destroy your happiness, forcing you to stay within a certain area or take the consequences of unhappiness, which in games like Civ 5 are really annoying. Civ 6 removes city caps for the most part, meaning the game turned into a massive, slow game of sprawl and tile min-maxing. As much as I hated happiness in Civ 5 and wished it didn't exist, seeing a version of Civ where it actually didn't made me realise just how good it actually was. I don't know about you, but I'm beyond glad that I don't have to cycle through 40 cities every single turn, especially when they didn't have a, channel all of your production into science method. Just those stupid city projects that would end every 2 to 3 turns, so you'd have to jump between all 40 again every time they expired. Right, tangent aside, how it works now is much nicer. You start off with a very low city cap, and gradually as you research new civics and technologies, or in some cases culture specific civics, this cap will now begin to grow. Throughout all the games I've done so far, I feel like this is the best pacing I've seen in any of the Civ entries. I don't particularly feel rushed to sprawl nor do I feel cramped into one small space. As eras progress, these city cap limits grow more and more. It does kind of reach a point like Civ 6 did, where you have tons of stuff everywhere, but there is a good silver lining this time. That silver lining being the new cities mechanic. Settlers can no longer just magically create a city, they create towns. Smaller and less important than cities. Again, you could compare this to other 4X style systems like humankind's merging system, turning towns and regions into administrative centres, feeding the yields to the capital in the region. Towns do not have a production queue, instead, their yields get converted initially into food, forcing the city to grow at an expanded rate until hitting the new specialization threshold. From this point, you can now assign a specific task to the town, increasing its yields in a specific way, or granting a unique benefit such as increased trade range or increased military defense. From there, the towns can then be subsequently converted into a city with a gold cost, giving it back its production queue and, well, just making it a normal city. You can still buy buildings in these towns, so you don't miss out on your ageless buildings. If you keep them specialized, their food yield now gets diverted to the capital, and their production gets converted into gold. I really like this system, mainly because it allows me to sprawl without the pain of juggling the 40 city build queues later on in the campaign. I did, however, run into a slightly frustrating problem when I had too many, with all of them diverting food to my capital. My capital just grew too big. It ended up using all of its workable tiles, forcing any other growth into specialists. And these specialists are good, they do give you extra science, but each one also gives you -2 happiness. As a consequence, I ended up being stun-locked by them. But overall, towns are good. They serve a good benefit of using them to grab resources, which plays a much more important role this time. Resources and trade is another section that has received a significant facelift. Would I consider it the best iteration of trade we have seen in Civ? I'm not sure yet. Rather than being an increased yield tile, giving a minor bonus to the city, as well as some happiness, resources are now flexible. They will enter your resource pool and will now need to manually be placed into a city or town to get the benefits. So luxuries can only be placed inside cities, but bonus resources can be placed in cities and towns. There are also some empire-wide resources that don't get placed but apply just, well, empire-wide. These resources also change depending on what age you're in. They might no longer exist in the next age, or they might just some different use cases altogether. To give an example, instance, one of the luxury resources in the first age provides plus 10% science, but in the second age provides 100% production towards missionaries and temples. Then in the final age, it just no longer exists at all. Iron, which is one of the Empire-wide resources, provides +1 combat strength for infantry in the first age, +1 combat strength for infantry and ranged units in the second age, and also doesn't exist in the modern age. These also stack, by the way. If you have multiple sources of iron, this combat bonus will increase based on how many you've got. Cities overall, though, do have resource caps, meaning to further engage in this system, you need to pivot into economic civics and technologies to increase your capacity for trade. There is also some trade goods as well that increase your city limit on resources. That's just camels. You can also use merchants to get more of these goods as well. Instead of trading with diplomacy, trade is now kind of non-negotiable. Upon getting the right tech and civic, you can build merchants. And these are more or less exactly like traders from Civ 6. Except instead of moving yields, you get access to whatever resources that target city produces, and there is no limit to how many merchants you can use. There is just an effective trade range based on city distance you have to consider, but that's it. This is by far one of my favourite changes in the new Civ. Trade has always felt terrible in Civ to me, between the AI spamming you with like bad trade deals every other turn, or the trader system in Civ 6 being tied to districts, only then providing you mainly with just gold. Gold which becomes less valuable because buying stuff scales with the gold you produce or have, but now you actively get resources from your trades. There is, however, downsides though. Firstly, it lacks the competitive element of getting resources. You don't need to fight to get your source of iron or horses, since you can just non-negotiably trade them with merchants. Secondly, resources are no longer tied to unit production. You no longer need to have a source of horses to build cavalry. It's subjective to how you look at this change, because on one hand, it strips the depth of trying to control resources for either your benefit or your opponent's detriment. Yet it also allows for everybody to build their own units without some kind of constraint, especially if said unit is a Civ-specific unit. For example, a Roman Legion unit, but you need to have iron to produce it. If you don't, well, that limitation is now gone, allowing for you to have a more even, I say that in quotations, even battleground. There's obviously a silver lining in that you can still try to control the empire-wide resources that give you flat combat stat increases for your units, but to me, number padding is different from, say, that competitive control for uranium in the prior civs, because everybody wanted to have the nuclear weapons. This kinda conveniently leads me onto the units and armies, which in my opinion is both good but also quite bad. Armies, navies, aviation stacking has been added to the game, a much needed quality of life feature, and these now stack under their respective generals and commanders. Commanders now, in my opinion, being the most important unit in the entire game. Not only do they persist across ages, I'll elaborate on that point when I talk about ages, but the quality of life changes as well, and the bust generals give is, honestly, you can't ignore them. It's actually too good to the point where I think it becomes like a bit of a problem. So how it works is that each general is unlocked per age. First age is your army commander, second age is your naval commander, and third age is your aviation commander, which for whatever reason also has two sub-variants. As I make my way through each age respectively, I will talk about each general commander as I hit them. So for now, it's just the army commander. Your first commander will be given to you for free upon researching the associated civic. You can get more, but they are very expensive to produce. Obviously so, considering their significance. Some nations and leaders also heavily impact generals, such as Friedrich's leader bonus, giving all commanders merit, or Persia's, oh boy, how am I going to pronounce this, Hazarapatis unique commander unit, which starts with initiative. I will note that these stack, so if you used Friedrich on top of Persia, your starting general would have both merit and initiative. So you might say that it's great and all, but what is merit and what is initiative? To answer that, we now have to get a look at the new promotion system. In the past, units individually got XP and bonuses, that's all gone now. Only the commanders gain XP, and they need to be present in combat to get it. I'm not sure if there is like a range. From my understanding, it's either inside the commander's tiles of influence or directly next to them for XP to apply. Gaining that XP from fighting, defending, dealing damage, killing units, usual stuff. With each level, you now get to progress through any of 5 trees, each specializing in a different use case for your commander. Want to go offensive and attack people? Put levels into assault. Want to be defensive? Put levels into bastion. You aren't restricted in any way other than how far down the tree the perk you want is, and so long as you have the prior connecting skill. Upon reaching the end of the tree, you will be able to select a commander commendation. This is a huge upgrade for your commander, massively increasing one element of their combat effectiveness. Merit, the commendation I mentioned earlier, gives your general an entire extra tile range to their range of influence, allowing more units to benefit from the combat modifiers gained from their skill tree. Another example is Valor, which is literally just a refresh on a unit's turn, giving them another attack order and 2 movement points. The new general system is so important, and this is where that too good to the point becomes a problem, comes into play. Since you need the commander present in order to gain XP, any fight you take without one present becomes a complete waste of resources. Say I move my general to go fight a city state. While they are away, I'm attacked by another player. Even though I might win the war against that player driving their attacking army away, my commander wouldn't have been present to gain any of the XP from the war. Tactically, yeah, sure, it's better to attack when your opponent's armies are elsewhere, but it feels like you're stun locked keeping your units where they are, just because if the moment you move them is the most likely time you'll be attacked. And even if you won the war easily, you've still lost a great deal of potential XP, so you're just kind of keeping them there just in case they do attack. Outside of the generals and commanders, the units have changed a fair bit too, although in a kinda disappointing way. Like I mentioned, units aren't resource dependent anymore, so all of them are just available so long as you have the technology for them. They no longer gain XP, so they're just kind of there, only mattering if there is a general nearby to make use of them. At the end of each age, all of your units also just get deleted, so building up armies over time is a bit pointless. Units have also been greatly simplified. Instead of having units playing certain roles, such as spearmen being, designated anti-cav, while your swordman remains your frontline to go infantry unit, that's now gone. It's simplified to a way that makes it almost seem a bit mobile gamey. Each unit is confined to a unit type, and there is only one of it per age, so one infantry unit, one ranged unit, one cavalry unit, one siege unit, one naval unit, etc. This list also expands a bit as the ages do, leading into types of planes and variations of naval units that just don't exist in the early ages. Any unique military unit a nation might provide simply replaces the unit in their respective category. So Greek hoplites, for example, replace the warrior infantry unit. But as technology advances, they aren't phased out for stronger units, but rather they just become tier 2 hoplite with a stat change, and that's it. Non-unique units do get their sprites changed to reflect their new model, as well as their appropriate stat changes, which is nice. It's probably a very pointless stance on my end, but it just feels like the thing you'd see in a mobile game, where it's just evolving them through tiers to just replace them and do it again. I feel like this is this way due to the ages wiping the slate clean and putting you and everyone else back to essentially tier 1. That continuous evolution of your units as time advances is now replaced with more hard, rigid evolutions of the age system. I will say though, as a whole, this is one of the best feeling combats we've had in a Civ game. Right, I think that's all of the important things covered, other than the elephant in the room. The thing I keep talking about but never elaborating on. The age system, and most importantly, the goals and victories associated with them. As it stands, everything I've talked about so far is about the first age. Some things do change as ages progress, and I'll talk about those too, but for the time being it's to sum up what ages are themselves and the first age. So, ages as a whole covers a new concept to Civ. Again, this is a concept you can easily compare to humankind, where the fixed point is met and everybody changes to meet the new age. In my honest opinion, I think this is executed very poorly. Humankind's system has its pros and cons. Competitiveness to get the right nation was one thing, but trying to score in the ages was absolutely horrific. Civ luckily avoids that, but still gets its own list of cons anyway. For a start, the ages are time locked, fixed to happen. As you approach the end of the age, which is when age progress has reached beyond 75%, a crisis will emerge. This is more or less a large defining catastrophe that symbolises the death of the old and rebirth of the new. This is something that's happened in history as well, with such things such as the Bronze Age collapse being regarded as the end of the Bronze Age, believe it or not, or how the Black Death influenced the dawn of the Renaissance. There are a bunch of different crises that can happen in each era. This does not include the modern era though. They're a nice little spice to make the endgame feel more like an endgame per age. Sometimes they're quite easy to manage, but if you have performed in a certain way, you might get punished heavily. For example, in a military game, I had a rather unhappy population, mostly due to being over city cap. The crisis I got was revolts. All my cities became increasingly unhappy, and some, including my major cities, flipped over to other civs, which is a tad annoying. The only way to end the crisis is to end the age. I mentioned age progress a few moments ago. This is the new equivalent of time, and in order to progress the age, we now need to talk about the new victory conditions. Traditionally, any Civ player is familiar with the grand goal of what Civ is, depending on what your nation's leaning is. Military is to take over everybody's capital. Science is the space race. Culture tends to change a bit per Civ, but as of Civ 6 it was based around tourism, and as well as religion, and in some games economic too. The grand goal, in my opinion, is kind of gone, replaced instead with sub-goals, which to me is the most disappointing thing about this new entry. There are nice little bits of novelty, giving you direction in each age and flavour, but some of the things implemented in this way has ripped a lot of the soul out of the game for me, particularly in the later ages, leaving this hollow, pointless feeling. Religion from the second age, as well as military and culture from the final age, being by far the worst offenders. So as you play through the ages, you will make progress towards the age-specific victory conditions. Achieving milestones in these conditions is what moves the age forward, and moves the clock forward. Turns in their own right will also move progress forward, as well as researching the final textbook civic of the age. These victory types are always broken down into 4 categories: cultural, economic, militaristic, and scientific. Each one has 3 milestones inside them to act as score points towards the time victory of the game. For the first stage, cultural victory involves building or having 7 wonders in your empire. A fitting and good victory condition, I'd say. 7 wonders of the world and all. Economic victory for the age requires you to have 20 or more resources applied to your cities and towns. Another nice condition to work towards. Military condition wants you to conquer or own cities, again makes sense. And lastly, scientific in the first stage wants you to accumulate codexes. You get these from various events, but most commonly from researching technology masteries. These also act as a slotted placeable, similar to your great works from Civ 6, giving you bonuses to science from having them. Now, why should you actually try to achieve these? They give bonuses and modifiers for you to take into the next stage. First major one is the attribute points. These are earned in multiple ways through a campaign. Some wonders give them, some mission chains give them, but you get them from here as well. They are campaign-wide buffs or bonuses that are fixed to certain playstyles. It's a neat addition, offering some nice flavour and rewarding you for playing in a certain way. But the main bonus is the ones you take into the next stage, are legacy points. These are fully tied to the victory paths and where most of the interesting things appear. The more of the victory path milestones you reach, the more legacy points you get to play with, and if you fully complete a victory path, you will earn the option of being able to buy or use one of the more valuable point options. Culture, for example, gives you the option to take culture and happiness on your wonders, with a grand bonus of allowing your amphitheaters to retain their yields, adjacency bonuses, and effects into the next age. This is quite a common one you'll see, replace amphitheater with academies for science. Even in the second age for science, it just replaces your universities. Economics are somewhat interesting, although in my opinion they don't really serve a sort of okay use case. Their grand bonus is that all your cities remain cities in the next stage instead of devolving back into towns. Out of all the games I've played though, I've never really had any gold issues, so just upgrading them back to cities has never been much of a loss. Before you say it's a lot of gold though, you could still just invest those legacy points into getting economic attribute points instead. Military, however, is where I feel these rewards benefit the most. Its lesser reward in the first era is just +2 settlement limit, which on its own is absolutely huge. And its greater reward is having additional units per city captured in the next era. This doesn't sound like much of a reward, but considering all your units get deleted and replaced in the next era, suddenly you now have like potentially 1.5 times the starting armies of your neighbours. With all that said and done, you do your age, survive the crisis, achieve your legacy points, then progress into the second age. What changes? With the dawn of the Second Age, the attention of the game changes to the focus of the New World. The map expands with new possibilities of exploring the ocean in search for new natural wonders, resources, and lands. Sounds promising, right? Well, in my opinion, as you progress the ages, they get worse. As mentioned before, all your armies have been destroyed, replaced with their now age equivalents. So from tier 3 units back to tier 1, just of exploration age quality rather than antiquity. I should note you also lose the ability to build siege equipment. The ones you had prior are gone, and you do not start with the technology to replace them, so your army composition you had before is now in need of reshuffling. All the buildings you had in the first age are now more or less worthless, losing their adjacency bonuses and effects unless they were ageless. Everyone starts at the beginning of a new tech in Civic Tree, and lastly, new victory paths appear for players to compete for. I should also mention that in this age is the age where you obtain your second variation of commander, this one being the fleet commander. This admiral operates identically to the army's commander, except that they're just for navies. They have their own skill trees with their own powerful skills too. To ensure that each age remains somewhat refreshing, the victory conditions change slightly. Instead of owning resources in cities in the economic victory task, now you want to trade resources specifically from the New World back to the Old World, simulating the very same treasure fleets that came from the likes of the Caribbean, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, and the Americas. This is by far the most flavorful of the victory conditions. However, again, it's met with its lackluster reward of cities remaining cities in the final era. Military is just the same, taking more cities, then get rewarded with more units. Science is about building tall this time, having districts with 40 yield, but the reward is just to keep the bonuses of universities like I mentioned before. Culture, however, I don't even know the best way to word culture. It's beyond disappointing. You need to display relics in your empire, more or less a copy and paste of the codexes from Age 1. These relics come from the game's interpretation of religion, and to be honest, this is the worst iteration of religion I think I've seen in a Civ game. I'd argue that it would have been better to not even have it at all. That's just how bad of an implementation it is. In Civ 6, religion was a victory condition. It enabled a new way to win, even if it was annoying, it still had an influence on your game. Now it's borderline obsolete as far as I care about it. You can build your missionary regardless of what's happening religious wise in your city. If you have the building you can build them even if your city isn't even following your religion. There's no passive religious push as far as I could see, just send missionary, convert pop. Depending on what founder belief you took, it will dictate whether or not it's easy or hard to progress the cultural pathway. I find the one for city-states easier as you walk over and convert them and get free relics. You can technically fully complete the cultural pathway without anyone following your religion. I couldn't find any diplomatic option for telling the other civs to stop converting. There's not even any religious strife causing penalties to cities unless you hit the religious crisis, and even then it's not that much of an issue. For what should be a major component of Civ, seeing it be rendered as such a footnote is quite terrible to me. Want to know the funniest part? When you go into the third age, religion just stops. It's gone. So if you bother to even go down the pathway, the reward is that all you get is you keep your religious bonuses. And I'm not really going to sugarcoat it. Despite finishing the pathway myself and converting a good chunk of people, I couldn't even find a way to enhance the religion to get the bonuses anyway. That's just how blatantly pointless it was. If I could essentially sum up Age 2, other than enjoying the new naval commander, the last full game of Civ I played, I did a one city challenge as Himiko, and I didn't build a single building in the entire age. I literally just blinked the entire age away. But after that, finally we hit the last age, the modern age. Even though I thought the second age was disappointing, I was about to learn just how badly they messed up the end game. So upon hitting age 3, the map will adjust again, resources will disappear, new ones will take their place, the effects of some resources will change, and a new set of victory conditions shall appear. These ones being, however, the only ones you kinda need to care about. This age also brings into play the massive diversity of armies and navies, as well as the introduction of aviation. 3 new commanders also appear in this age. Upon researching flight, you're granted the aerodrome building to house aircraft. This building in its own right is the first aviation commander. It seems weird, but yeah, it is. And upon building one, you also receive a flight commander. These are more like portable air bases. And finally, the last one is the aircraft carrier, who functions as, well, a portable airbase, but on the water. These 3 also have differing skill trees as well. I will say that war in this age is really fun, but the victory conditions is just too much for me to overlook. Cultural victory is now tied to archaeology, which was kind of like the little sub-game from the prior Civ. It's now the true victory condition of culture. You search ruins, obtain artifacts, and upon getting 15 you unlock the World's Fair, a building that once built ends the game. Science is no different than other Civs. Read book, get smart, build rocket, go space. Economic is actually one of the more interesting ones. I'm quite a fan of the flavour. With the resource changes in this era, it's all about industrialization. Some resources can now only be slotted into factories. They give big bonuses for doing so, and over time contribute to this railroad tycoon victory goal. It's more or less a reskin of the treasure fleets, except it's not unit based, but based on connected cities and resources inside them. Again, this is one of the more flavorful ones, but upon completing the path to earn victory, you need to now just send a great person to each capital to establish the World Bank, and that ends the game. Lastly is military, and boy, this is the one that set me down a negative viewpoint on the game. Being the first victory condition I did, I was looking forward to deep diving into war. Again, its concept is simple: conquer cities and progress the path. You get extra points for them being of differing ideology as well. Think this being the exact same as the government stuff in Civ 6, fascism versus democracy versus communism, etc. When you complete this path, you earn the right to build the Manhattan Project. And anyone that knows Civ knows this is the thing everyone looks forward to: nukes. Completing this path unlocks nuclear weaponry and access to the Project Ivory project. Now, I don't want to ruin the mood here, but hear me out, right? It takes me 12 turns to build a nuclear weapon, or 15 turns to build Project Ivory. Upon completing Project Ivory, the game ends, and I win military victory. So, what exactly is the point of nukes? You've already won military victory by taking over all of those cities just to unlock the ability to use them. But other than literally delaying your own victory, there's no point in them even existing, and it's just so stupid. It annoys the crap out of me. And to top it off, there's still like 2 more aggravating things left to talk about. Even if you chose to extend playing the game, you will be limited by whatever amount of age progress is left, since as soon as that hits 100%, the game just ends via score victory. In this case, it's a tally of who has the most total legacy points across all ages. I don't know about you, but I always hated score and time victories in Civ because they just feel like a complete scam. Artificially ending the game without a conclusive winner has always been like bad in my eyes. Humankind has it so much worse, with the hardest AI being able to cheat its way to win score based on how the game done those stupid dumb yield bonuses versus age stars. Then there's the last one: score victory, military victory, whatever victory you achieve. There's no more one more turn button. Like, I actually don't care what anybody says about this. That button is synonymous with Civ. It's one of the most powerful phrases in gaming, that it embodies that even there's reasons that you should stop, whether it be to sleep, make food, but that innate desire to keep playing makes you go one more turn. If you asked any gamer what that phrase means, I'm willing to wager that 75% or more of them will tell you Civ. Even Civ's marketing material has contained that phrase. That's how important it is to the franchise. And they removed it. Like, no matter what state your game was in, if you were enjoying it or not, it ends. I'm sure you can imagine my opinion upon finishing Project Ivory in my first game. Then it just fades to black and shows the results screen, and I didn't even get to make much use out of the nukes. Right, anyway. Summary time, cause making any more of this actively makes me feel frustrated. The game is good for its value as a game, but it's woefully disappointing for its value as a Civ game. It bit off from so many other games trying to find a perfect formula and failed, almost being lesser versions of the game they bit off in the areas they chose to bite from. I never talked about them before now, but Wonders have been some of the most meh ones in Civ. Not for what they are, but I just never felt any reason to care about building them. The biggest reason contributing to that is that they never really mesh with what the greater goal in Civ in this entry is. There are still some that are really nice to have, like Terracotta Army giving you an extra free commander, but none of them are like must-have rushes in prior Civ games. Racing Stonehenge for the free profit, or any of the science ones for the huge early game boost they provided, or free technologies they gave. Even if you were to play well and get ahead, each age transition will rubber band you back in line with the other players, which is an okay thing, I guess, preventing the problem of people advancing so far ahead that it would be impossible to catch up to them, but it doesn't feel nice. As well as it deleting your armies and units you might have in specific spots for specific reasons. Overall, I feel like they tried too hard to compartmentalize the game, so that each era could be its own Civ game, breaking up the bigger picture into 3 smaller pictures. You could also argue that this is for the scalability of the game, allowing ages to be added in blocks, adding massive chunks of content. I could easily see them adding in an age beyond modern with new nations and mechanics. I'd be very impressed if they did. It could also be to fixate stopping points for multiplayer, such as saying now's the time to take a break, etc. Each time the map has to reload for an age, it helps with lobby synchronicity, but that's me playing mainly devil's advocate. In fact, I think this version of Civ encourages you to be more militaristic than any other Civ entry, since there's no risk of not scaling your nation, since you will always be brought back to standard as soon as the age transitions. And even if you did badly, but took a lot of cities, you can get the military bonuses giving you additional units for a turn 1 blitz. But with the only thing mattering being the final age and what's tied to it, it makes a lot feel pointless. Victory conditions in the prior ages, despite giving you some flavorful content, why bother going for them? Especially ones like religion or economic. You could play through a whole game and win without engaging with them as long as you just perform correct in the last stage. They glossed up replayability when you mix and match leaders, nations and mementos, but the changes are so insignificant and hollow feeling that they end up all feeling the same anyway. I've come back to test a bit since they added the new leader in 2 nations from the first, and saying this in quotations, DLC pack. If you can call it that, because I certainly wouldn't, because it seems more like base content held from launch and split off into something to be sold as an extra, or just to pad out the initial numbers after release. And to be honest, something that didn't even seem to work, considering if you were to look at it on SteamDB versus other entries. Even the launch settings were disappointing, with restricted player limits and the restricted map sizes. The game is just undercooked, and I have a good idea as to what I personally think was the reason for this Civ to be so disappointing, and that's availability. I know it sounds stupid, right, but hear me out. Civ has and always will be a PC game at its heart. I think this is the first time they've decided to treat PC equally with other areas. Let's take Civ 6 as an example first. It released on PC platforms on October 2016, with the ports of the game hitting other areas years later. Probably took a lot of manpower to port the games and get them to run on any other bit of hardware. Civ 7 has had everything release on the same day. That means that all the manpower that should have been there to create a solid core experience has been split to get that core experience working on all platforms at launch. This includes even the Nintendo Switch. So in order to achieve this, they've probably slaughtered elements of the game, and It's why there's probably a player limit. It's why there's probably a map size cap, because they just can't add them without one of those platforms becoming unplayable. So what we as PC players expected to come with a Civ title has been diluted to allow for the game to sell on these other platforms. There was nothing stopping them for repeating with what they did with Civ 6 and porting the stuff over at a later date. They just wanted the money now. And if this didn't sell that to you, then please explain to me this. Like, why the fuck did we need a Civ VR? Like, how much time, money, and resources that could have made the game better went into this? If this was built as a PC game the way it was meant to be, then ported over, like, this would have been a smash hit, but it just isn't. One of my friends said if he could refund the game, he would, and to be honest, I even agree with him. Given the chance to, I'd refund it as well. Other than to test the new changes and get footage for this review, the last time I even played the game was on the 9th of February. The game doesn't even appeal enough to me to get me to go back and give it, one more turn. My friends who love Civ haven't played much of it either, like haven't even been able to arrange a group game between us all because nobody just wants to. I've only done up to Sovereign difficulty as well because I just don't even want to play it anymore to tackle deity. Just to cut top it off though, I just can't recommend this game. If you're a diehard, you've no doubt already bought it, but if you're on the fence, just wait. Like, wait a real long time. Not even a sale is going to help unless it's more than 50% off. I'd tell you to wait until the first DLC, but boy are they already selling it. That Crossroads of the World pack I said I was testing is the first DLC, 2 leaders, 4 nations, some natural and buildable wonders, and a badge. All that for £25, nearly half the price of the base game. And to rub it in, it's probably cut content from the base game being sold back to you for even more money. It's actually a fucking joke. How can you release DLC as if it's new content 1 month after you just dropped the game and say it's new content? Nah, just don't even waste your time. Like, on gameplay, this game is a 6 out of 7. But with this greedy month 1 DLC stuff at half the price of the game, it's honestly a 5. It's a colossal disappointment. Like, get this crap off of my machine.